Hello and welcome to the Perspecticast, the podcast companion to the Panda Perspective Substack. This is the fourth attempt of doing it. Unfortunately, I've been foiled by a collection of sound mishaps, so I'm resorting to using the telephone as the microphone. Hopefully, it goes better than all the previous solutions. Stay tuned to find out. Nevertheless, I am persevering with the recording on account of my believing that it's an important one to make. This one will address the electric vehicles, the piece we've just put out. Please check it out. Please subscribe and read. I believe it's very, very good. I would hope that you would think that once you've read it as well. The challenge is always timing these things. And obviously, we released it yesterday in advance of the Li 8 presentation last night and also BYD sales numbers releasing this morning. As a result, we've seen BYD off quite a bit and Li Auto being sold off quite aggressively. Because the Li 8 pricing is too high and features aren't potentially that great. I think, once again, the market is missing Li Auto, right? Li is selling a comfortable family vehicle, right? Everything they've done is to make sure that safety is a one easy tick and there are no doubts about it. And it's about making sure that the ride is as comfortable as possible. So it's like the parking solution integration first, just for the China market, but that's where the main market is. And with BYD sales numbers, again, a little light, but not crazy light, right? I think they're still on. It will be surprising to me if they don't make 5 million units this year, and if they don't do 1 million of exports as part of that. So to me, it's all reasonable. The challenge is that with the price war ending, it's just a different game for them, and they need to be pushing a little bit harder on non-price aspects of their offering, which they will, and they'll get it done. So not too worried about the immediate fluctuations. Over the long term, I'm actually quite comfortable. And that is what I wanted to make the bulk of this presentation about, because quite frankly, I think some of these things go unsaid. And sometimes maybe it's worth spending the time and saying them out loud just to get it on record, right? I think the most important thing about EVs is that they're firmly a thing now, right? I mean, EVs are now part of the Chinese vehicle market and more broadly of the world vehicle market. In China, they sell over half, and I don't think that's going back. It's not just the incentives, it's also the fact that they're super convenient and super easy to use, and ADAS systems work on them. More on that later. It's just a great way to live in China. Is it the best solution for elsewhere in the world? I'm still convinced that for Europe, yes, absolutely. For America, is going to be a part of the solution, right? I also note that the price competitiveness angle of it all, right? If you compare battery electric vehicles and internal combustion engine prices in China, battery electric vehicles were 10% more expensive than their ICE counterparts in 2019. They're 3% cheaper now. And bear in mind that there are war incentives for ICE cars as well, obviously not to the same degree, but they existed. And that maybe seemingly as important, the efficiency push was very similar in the ICE bucket as well as in the BEV buckets. I think going full throttle, it's quite reasonable to assume that over the long run, he's going to get a lot cheaper than ICE as players scale up. This is not the case in Germany and the United States, right? In Germany, the discount of ICE to electric vehicles is still around a third. In America, it's around 30, just under 30%. But in America, in 2019, the discount was 44%. So ICE was 44% cheaper than a similar EV model. So again, positive dynamic, but we're not quite there yet. So a lot of work to be done. And I feel like unless markets open up to Chinese imports, it'll take quite a while for these things to even out. I think it's interesting in the context of all these new models being released, like the L90 for Onvo, for Li 8 for Li Auto. The market is moving towards these small cars and on one end and family SUVs on the other end, and which is kind of the journey we've gone through on the ICE as well. So um, the market in EVs is not static, but it is normalizing to these shapes, to these forms. And we're sort of a long way away from the Cambrian explosion of 2021, 22 Chinese market, where you didn't see EVs in all sorts of shapes and sizes, doing all sorts of crazy things. Now, the norms have standardized, the focus on safety, on comfort is back. And I think this is healthy. This is healthy for any market. So, quite happy to see that because again, all of that is a sign that this is a market is maturing, right? Same for battery chemistry, right? So there's a section in the report on the battery chemistry, and quite frankly, it might startle some people because we talk about LFP being a big part of the market. Just how big? That's interesting. But there's something that starts turning in my head, thinking about, well, what will happen to the NMC capability if we spend as much time and effort into improving those batteries? Can we get to 2,500 kilometer ranges, 3,000, 5,000? Let's find out, right? I mean, obviously, Huawei is talking about a 3,000 kilometer range battery for 2026. Pretty sure CATL is as well. Let's see how it goes. Until we get to solid state batteries, we can assume that there's going to be fluctuation between battery technology. Like this is obviously sodium batteries that are going to enter production next year. So there are two competing vectors of improvements, right? One is qualitative and one is price, right? And on the price side, we're getting inferior chemistries to work as well as the superior chemistries. On the performance side, we're just trying to get to push the boat as far out as we can. And I think it was quite clear that over the last couple of years, we're focused on the latter. So we're focused on getting the worse battery chemistries to perform as the better ones, and thereby cutting prices quite dramatically. Question is, what can we do if we want to push the boat out? And I feel like we're going to experience that. This is likely a 2026 story, nevertheless. Is one that I am personally monitoring quite closely. The other thing is, of course, on ADAS, the driving assistance systems. There was a big test done in China. I mean, there is a question of how biased or unbiased it was, but nevertheless, it's this test that we have, in which Tesla has done really, really well, and LiDAR companies and LiDAR enabled cars have not done very well. That to me is an indicator that most likely the level 2.5 ADAS is kind of where you don't, and all the way up to it is where you don't need LiDAR, right? I mean, that was the Tesla pitch originally, and that seems to be playing out. The question is, do you need it to get to level 3 and level 4? Which is something that Huawei thinks the answer is yes to, and Elon Musk continues to think that no, the answer is no. I don't know, obviously. I don't feel like my opinion is super important on that particular angle. It's more like a question of understanding what the indications are, right? And I think the conceptual question is it overwhelming the onboard computer? Because, of course, more data you think is better than less data. At some point, do you have just too much data, and how do you merge it together accurately, and how do you not get confused by it, right? So I think the argument is, can they improve the onboard computing power quickly enough to take advantage of the LiDAR? That is the real technological obstacle for Huawei. But again, if there is a company in the world that can get it done, I think it's Huawei. I am looking forward to see where that all sort of ends up. I talk about the updated views on companies in the report, so please check it out. One thing I will note is there is not a Geely Group report in it, because I think it requires a separate standalone write-up, which I'll try and do sometime this autumn. But Zeekr, we've dropped coverage of Zeekr on account of the acquisition backed by the Geely Group. And it does seem like there's a streamlining process of brands and things like that that is happening right now, and potentially an acquisition slash folding in of capacity into various brands that will continue. So I think the most interesting question is, where does this leave NIO? The success of Volvo L90s is critical for them, and also the bigger the new ES one as well. I think for NIO, they either need to work out a new business model where they go beyond being vehicle manufacturers, or they need to cut costs dramatically or monetize some of the capacity that they have in other ways. I think it all hinges on the fact, is Neo brand a good brand? Is it strong enough? And if you ask Neo fanatics, everybody will say, yeah, of course, it's the strongest, it's brilliant, it's a luxury, it's great. But I think it's not penetrated deep enough into the psyche of most consumers outside of China, and I think that's the long and short of it right now. The real question is, can they show profitability at the end of the fourth quarter? Maybe yes, maybe no. It's tough one to say. But I will acknowledge that NIO is the one that has probably the most upside from here if they put it all together. So that creates an interesting opportunity in the market that I think some people might want to have a look at. I still think that even the announcement today, I think maybe some people get underwhelmed by the Elite, but actually, price and quality offering is really good, and it's very much in the spirit of non-price competition and for focusing on the quality. And I do think that it will sell well, and if it outsells L90, oof, that'll be a rough one for the Neo holders. But the problem is, it's not even going to be that big a deal for the Lee story, because it's not the electric things that really move the needle. It's the range extenders for now, at the very least. But it's good for them to have a competent battery electric lineup as well, which is something that they're rolling out now. We'll monitor the space, of course, but I don't anticipate doing a full review not until early next year, obviously, except for the Geely report that pre-announced. But again, that's probably October time. We're looking at that. Obviously, this has been a turbulent couple of months for me, but seems like we're coming out of it. I'm very much looking forward to do more of these and to focusing on the blog in the very near future. There's a very big feature coming out on the semiconductors. I've jumped right in, as it were. And I'm very much hoping to start releasing the reports as soon as I get back to base. And the first one is going to be a broad overview of the semiconductor space and comparing some of the Chinese companies to some of the Western companies, just to give the reader a better understanding of the space. But there's going to be 12 or 13 articles in total. That's kind of the mapping I've done so far. Maybe I'll cut one out, maybe I add another one in. This is very much a live sort of document that I'm formatting as I go. But there's an awful lot of reading and learning that is going into it on my part, which might lead to somewhat reduced posting in the next couple of weeks. But when we get up to speed, there's going to be an awful lot of semiconductor content coming your way. Pretty much all of it will be paywalled because, again, whilst it's a labor of love, it's also quite the Herculean labor, right? It's a lot of work that's going into it. I'm hoping that you will appreciate it. But at the end of it, we'll have a very comprehensive review of the entirety of the semiconductor space that will stay current for some time, and we'll use it as baseline for future updates. And I'm also hoping to generate a restructuring of the portfolio out of this for reasons of preference within the space, or at the very least, commitment to existing positions will be reinforced by a much stronger research base. Either way, that's a conversation for another time. In the meantime, have a lovely rest of the week. I will be flying and traveling for the majority of the rest of the week. So hopefully I will be back on firmer ground by the end of the weekend, and I should be able to speak to you then through the usual weekly updates, portfolio update, and then next week another episode of the Perspecticast. Have a great one. Bye.